two of the most electric quarterbacks in the NFL. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens held on to beat Jaden Daniels and the Commanders 30-23. Lamar, 20 for 26, 323 yards and a casual touchdown. Derrick Henry added 2 touchdowns of his own rushing. The two-time MVP spoke on his offense, as we say. We're not going to get to the sound because we're already up against it. And so, Shannon, I go to you. Are the Ravens the most dangerous team in the NFL at this point?
Well, I think it's between them and the Lions. I would probably give the Ravens a slight lead since the age 8 Hutchinson is down, because he's the guy, he's the best player on defense, and he's the guy that could consistently generate pressure, attack your quarterback. He's very disruptive in the run game. But I would give a slight nod to the Ravens because the way Lamar is dealing the football, and because they can run the football, and they've done something that I recommended they do after the first game. Put Derrick Henry's feet at 8 yards. His heels are at 8 yards, and either hand it to him or toss it to him. Let Ricard lead the way. Sometimes you say, Ricard, get the hell out of the way and let me go do what I need to do. But since they put him in that I formation, Stephen A., he's been over 100 yards ever since, with the exception of the Cincinnati game, and he had the big run to seal the game. He is the guy, because remember late in the ball game last year, they were losing ball games. Now they have a guy that I can say, look here, hey, D. Henry, I need you to make sure they don't get the ball back. I got you, coach. That's the difference in them this year than last year. But I would give a slight nod to the Ravens only because of Hutchinson going down. But those are the two best teams, in my estimation, based on the first 6 weeks of the season. Seeing what I've seen both offensively and defensively, those are the two best teams.
I have to go with the Detroit Lions to answer to this question, because what I'm seeing from Lamar Jackson is phenomenal. What I'm seeing from Derrick Henry is phenomenal, but it still doesn't eclipse what we're seeing from the Detroit Lions. You don't have one, but 2 running backs. The only team in the NFL with 2 running backs with 300 or more rushing yards in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, okay? You have to take that into consideration. They got not 1, but 2 weapons at the wide out spot in Williams and obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then you got Laporte at the tight end spot. We just had a sighting for Mark Andrews yesterday. It was good to see. But the bottom line is, and we know what he can do because his reputation speaks for itself. But when you see Laporte and the way that he's been playing, when you see the way Jared Goff is just distributing that football, right? The only question mark as you look at the Detroit Lions is now that Hutchinson's going to be out, how are they going to make up for the loss of one of the elite defensive players in the National Football League? But when you look at the balance on both sides of the ball and what they bring to the table, and you couple that with the balance on their offense, I know that Zay Flowers and Bateman and those brothers can play. They're not scrubs. But they ain't what we're seeing from the Detroit Lions. And so I look at the Detroit Lions and the way that they're playing and how they're on the come up and how mission-minded they are with the personnel that they have in place and what they bring to the table. I understand you can look at Lamar Jackson and say, I'd rather have him than Jared Goff. But guess what? The way Jared Goff is playing, you can't dismiss him. Weapons he has, you can't dismiss him. And on top of it all, they run the football. And, oh, by the way, they ain't soft. Not to say Baltimore is.
Sure.
But they're not soft either. I mean, Dan Campbell have those brothers playing like Rough Riders. I'd have to give the edge to the Detroit Lions right now.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City is the best team in football still. No one's beaten them. When do you do your Stephen's A list?
I guess in the next segment.
Wednesdays? No, for the top 5 teams.
It's usually on Tuesday.
All right, so Tuesdays. There's 5 teams that are clearly the best teams in football. Kansas City, Detroit, Minnesota, Houston, and Baltimore. Those are the 5 best. So I just gave you your list, Stephen. I did that work for you. The Detroit point with Hutch, they got to call.
I'm not listening to it, but go ahead.
But that'll be the 5 teams, just so America knows. They got to call the Raiders for Max Crosby, Myles Garrett for the Browns, see if they'll trade them, Josh Hines-Allen from Jacksonville. Those are the 5 teams. Let me give you 2 names, team-wise, Shannon A., Stephen A., Shay, that I think are dangerous that we're not talking about enough. Okay? 1, the Green Bay Packers. They're 4-2. Jordan Love looked really good. They're taking the ball away on defense. They're 4-1 in their last 5 games. Cincinnati Bengals. I'm banking that the Bengals are going to get to 11-6 and get into the playoffs. Oof. I'm banking that that's why last night's win was so important. Get to 2-4. I think they will get to 5-4 and go to Baltimore for Sunday Night Football in 3 weeks. The 5 best teams are the teams that we think 5 best records. Those are 2 teams that are dangerous because we're not talking about them enough, and we've kind of swept them under the rug, and they are both capable of getting as hot as anybody and are talented enough to knock off any of those 5 teams.
I would agree with all of that. The Bengals just look so snoozy, though. In years past, they would throw into all these receivers. There was a different kind of pizzazz. They could stop someone on defense. They just seem to have.
I don't view them that way offensively, even though last night they weren't spectacular. I don't view them that way offensively. I just think that defenses put you in a hole when your defense is suspect and it has difficulty stopping the opposition. That pressurizes things for an offense, and it makes you a bit tight at times because you can't afford to make but so much mistakes when you don't have faith that your defense is going to stop.
Don't remember. Okay, so they lost to Baltimore on a missed field goal. They make the field goal in overtime.
They've been close against good teams.
They lose to Kansas City on the pass interference. It's the right call. Here's my point. They're 2-4. They play Cleveland next week. I'm going to think that the Bengals beat.
The Browns always have their number, though. It doesn't matter how bad they are.
But the Browns are a reeling football team. Then they play Philly. Then they play the Raiders. Then that leads to Baltimore. I think they win their next 3 games. And then totally the trajectory of the season's completely different. They'll go to Baltimore, Sunday Night Football, with the chance to beat Baltimore and get to 6 to. What'd you say?
They're not beating Baltimore.
I don't believe they'll beat Baltimore.
I believe anything's possible in the AFC North.
I mean, Shannon, they lost.
I believe anything's possible in the AFC North.
Yeah, I mean, they're.
Well, we put man on the moon, so anything is possible, Stephen A. We put man on the moon, so anything is possible. But what's likely? What's the probability of it? You willing to put something down on it?
Well, let me ask you this. I might, because guess what? I mean, when you see how they've lost, I mean, they're going up against Baltimore. Anything's possible. Look at
And Shannon, you know this. They get hot and they get in. That's the most dangerous team because that's the team that anybody or everybody truly to their core thinks they could beat Kansas City.
That's true.
I tend to like teams that can both run it and throw it come playoff time. And that's what the Ravens and that's what the Lions can do. Now Kansas City, you see what Kareem Hunt the last time he was out, he went over 100 yards. So they want to run the football. Andy Reid has done a great job of running the football, trying to take some pressure off his offensive line, and Patrick Mahomes for throwing it so much. But when you look at the Lions and you look at the Ravens and the violence in which their offensive line and defensive line play at, and Derrick Henry is running the ball, Lamar Jackson was 20 of 26.
Yeah.
Now Mark Andrews has found his footing. They got the 2 best tight ends.